Hello again. I thought I'd highlight for you today James Stalker, one of my very favorite authors. I've read quite a few of his books. He died in 1927. He was a free church minister of the Church of Scotland. In that period, the Church of Scotland had undergone many rifts and a serious disturbance going back to about the 1830s or 40s. And in that period, James Stalker and many other great Scottish theologians came forth. He was educated, among others, with Henry Drummond, and was with Drummond and several other key ministers of the period, involved in the work of Dwight Moody and Ira Sankey, who came over from America and blessed Britain, you might say, presided over one of the greatest revivals in British religious history. And James Stalker was one of the fruits of that and rose to prominence in the 1880s and 90s. A great preacher in the free church tradition and author of many books that are still with us. So I would strongly urge you to acquire as many books as you can of James Stalker. 3 of his most prominent books and long-lasting and reprinted ones are The Life of Jesus Christ. I think that was his very first book printed. A subsequent book that has even a higher reputation is The Trial and Death of Jesus Christ. And a third one is called Imago Christi, the image of Christ, or the example of Christ. Perhaps it could be translated. Stalker wrote this book toward the end of his life. It's published in 1918, The Beauty of the Bible. It's a study of the poetic books of the Old Testament particularly. And in this book he takes up the Song of Songs, of course, one of the most beautiful and poetic books of the Bible, one that is subject, we might say, to much misunderstanding and very much over the centuries subject to the interpretation that pulls us away from its literal truth. And its truth, of course, on a literal level is it's about human love, what the Greeks would call eros, but in its highest form. And so for that reason the Song of Songs has been much abused and treated allegorically for centuries. It's only in the last 100 years or so that we have got the Hebrew attitude back towards the things of the flesh. So when Stalker wrote this, we were just on the brink of regaining the Song of Songs in its original, you might say, historical or fleshly context. It serves many spiritual lessons, of course, to us, and it's been used much to make comparisons between human love and the divine love of Christ for his church, or Yahweh or Jehovah for the nation of Israel. When Stalker takes up the Song of Songs, he talks about the place of love and lust in the culture of the Victorian era in which he grew up, and of course still very much with us in the years of World War I when he wrote these words. And when he talks about religion and love, of course he can't avoid the word lust, and this is how he talks about the place of the book of Song of Songs in the Bible. It has a peculiar function, and it should have anyway, in Christian life, just as it had in the Old Testament, and he explains why here. Certainly religion is profoundly interested in the ideals of human love prevailing in any community. This is a subject which is supposed by the rules of conventionality to be excluded from the pulpit. It has been handed over to the novelists and the dramatists, and we might say today to the filmmakers, who have adopted it as their stock in trade. But too much depends on it, not only for the happiness, but likewise the goodness of human beings, to justify the occupants of the pulpit in leaving it to others without the influence of religion and the guidance of the Bible. A human life is never more directly in the way of being either made or marred. That's a great phrase. A human life is never more directly in the way of being either made or marred than in the hour when the heart is given into the custody of another. Next to the grace of God, there is no gift of heaven more precious than a pure and successful affection. Where, on the contrary, the intercourse of the sexes is regulated by low and false conceptions of what love is, society is corrupted through and through. The homes of the people lose the inward cohesion on which peace and prosperity depend, and ultimately the state, which is a structure reared on the sunk arches of the home, verges to its fall. All these dangers must have threatened the Jewish community when King Solomon was setting to his subjects such an evil example. And a book like this, that is the Song of Songs, may have been the very thing required to counteract the prevailing tendencies. Pure human love, even apart from religion, may, in many respects, be called the greatest thing in the world. That, by the way, is a title of the most famous book by Stalker's old school chum, Henry Drummond. Pure human love, even apart from religion, may in many respects be called the greatest thing in the world, but it may also be called a prophecy and promise of the advent of religion. There are secrets in religion which nothing else can illustrate so well. Take, for instance, the purifying power of love. The entrance into the heart of a pure affection is the one thing which can put an end to the struggle with lust in which many aspiring souls are entangled, or rid the imagination of the images begotten there by unholy passion. It purifies and sweetens the whole atmosphere till nothing base can live in it. This, however, is precisely the way in which pure religion operates. Its secret is what was called by Chalmers the expulsive power of a new affection. It is Christ in the heart that drives out selfishness and worldliness. Thomas Chalmers was another great figure in the Scottish revival. He throve about 3 generations before Stalker and was the greatest name in Scottish theology in the 1830s and 40s. But it was Chalmers who gave us this immortal phrase, the expulsive power of a new affection. Here, Chalmers and Stalker are saying is the secret of the problem of lust, defeating lust. The only thing that can defeat it permanently is not extraction. By no process of extraction can lust be defeated by human will, but by the expulsive power of something greater, i.e. love, whether it be human love, pure love, or, better still, Christ's love, as exemplified, of course, in the best examples of human love. So Christ's love is the secret, as Chalmers and Stalker saw it, to the defeat of lust. It's counterfeit, you might say. In another segment, we'll look at what Stalker thought was a great adjunct to creating a spiritual atmosphere in a man or a woman which would be conducive to the growth of goodness and kindness and the expulsion of unnatural affections, here addressed in the context of the Song of Songs. Love is the answer, I suppose, is the simple way of putting it, to the problem of lust and all human affections which derive from some or other brand of covetousness. Since the 10th commandment is not a commandment against possessions, it is a command, though, against unnatural lusts. James Stalker, The Beauty of the Bible.